We think we know who 4 of the starters are, but who should get that 5th starting spot? We answer that question and more on today's DLLS Mavs podcast. Hello and welcome to today's DLLS Mavs podcast, folks. It is Friday. The weekend is almost here, but don't lose concentration now. Don't lose focus. The finish line is in sight, but you got to get there safe and sound before you can enjoy your weekend.
Don't catch a booking.
You don't do that. I mean, on any day of the week. But my name is Bobby Corella. That guy with sage wisdom and advice is Tim Cato. And before we introduce our special guest for today's show, which you've already seen if you're watching on YouTube, we launched a Die Hard sale. Dallas Cowboys training camp is underway out in Oxnard. Clarence Hill is out there, probably up to no good, but also bringing you a bunch of scoops and exclusives with Dak Prescott, walk-off interviews with Jerry Jones, and much more. To get all of that coverage and more, you can take advantage of this deal. It's $36 for a year. That's $3 a month. What are you waiting for? Scan that QR code, hit the link in the description, and become a Die Hard today. You also get a free shirt when you sign up. That guy on the end down there. Now, I don't want to put you under the gun like 2 seconds into the show, Christian Clark from The Athletic, but this guy took over the Mavs beat about 2 months before everything happened. So thank him for everything. He is the great Christian Clark.
Yeah, Tim Cato handed me a bomb. I just didn't know it. You know, he's like,
I didn't
come
know
take over the Mavs beat. It'll be great. You know,
Yeah.
I watched Luka play 4 times and then he got traded.
Yeah, I jury rigged the beat on the way out. Planted mines all around it, and let me tell you, they all blew up.
It was a great scheme. This is the big reveal. You've been punked. Ashton Kutcher, come on out. So on today's show, we're going to talk all about the Mavs offseason in the first 2 segments, and then a little later on the show, we are going to dive into the first few months on the beat for Christian. He came from the New Orleans Times-Picayune, so he's got a lot of experience in the NBA, but nothing quite like what we all went through in spring 2025. And then we're just going to hang out. It's going to be a real fun show, but let's dive right into the hot topics. Okay, I think we all agree Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, D'Angelo Russell until Kyrie Irving comes back, and then either Dereck Lively or Daniel Gafford will be the Mavs' 4 starters this season, but there's that 5th spot. And we've all kind of assumed it's going to be PJ Washington, but hey, Klay Thompson still exists, and that guy is really good. So Christian, in your opinion, as things stand now, who should get that 5th spot if those other 4 guys are going to be penciled in?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a real discussion. I know Nico, went on the record on draft night. He said, look, we feel like PJ Washington and Cooper Flagg, like those guys can coexist. There was that story about, hey, PJ was at Cooper Flagg's draft workout and, him and Nico are talking. And they're like, oh, that's fine. We can play together. Like we can make this work. I think, look, they could do that. If it was up to me, I think I would probably go with Klay Thompson just because I think they're going to need shooting. Like if you look at the 9 games Anthony Davis actually played in last year, I mean, they were like last. I mean, you look at the 3-point
by
makes.
like 4 attempts.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't only attempts; it was makes too. Like they were making fewer threes in those 9 games than like the Orlando Magic, who were by far like the worst outside shooting team in the NBA. Like I just have concerns about spacing, I guess. And to me, it's like I just want Klay out there, just to have as much space as possible for AD and everybody else.
I do think that there is, the Mavs are one of the few teams that often double from 1 pass away in the post, and that just drives me nuts. But even if, let's say AD's really got it going, he's cooking in the post, and teams are going to start double teaming him, you assume it's going to be D'Lo 1 pass away because he's going to be the guy that's delivering the ball to AD down there. And so you're not going to double off D'Lo because that's 1 pass away. That's dumb. And then if your guy on the weak side is Klay, then it's really hard to double off of him too because he commands so much attention. So I do think that does open up space, but Tim, that kind of, PJ is still going to get a ton of minutes, but starting Klay over PJ kind of is a departure from this notion of defense and size and, all physicality and all that stuff. Klay is more of a at this stage of his career, he's more of a three-point shooter and maybe less of a hard-nosed, gritty defender that he was earlier in his career.
Yeah, but every single team is going to have offense-defense trade-offs. It's pretty much like when it comes to lineup building, what coaches have to do is figuring out how to juggle. When do I put the offense guy who doesn't quite give as much defensively? When to go vice versa? Dallas, to their credit, like their MO, what they want to do is have two-way guys, and they do have two-way guys. At the 3 and the 4 and to an extent at the 5, like these are what these guys do. What the two-way guys don't bring is shooting, like what all of these guys who are adept and skilled both sides of the ball. PJ Washington will take shots. Like he is a player who knocks down jumpers, but he does not have gravity in that sense. Cooper Flagg is not going to have gravity as a shooter his first season. And then there's AD and Lively or Gafford, and that's going to be the same thing. Like these, Anthony Davis has been a sub 25 shooter, 25% 3-point shooter, I think, for about 5 years. Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively, even if Lively takes a few threes next season, those are not spacers. Those are not players that opponents are scared of and are going to like really go guard. And so at some point you have to have the trade-off of, okay, Klay Thompson, not a like a horrific defender or anything, just slowed with age, but you've got to at some point throw some bones to the offense if you want it to function correctly.
And Klay just has a lot of experience too, and if he
wants to start for sure.
Yeah, and the idea of this season is that you're trying to compete and hold things down until Kyrie comes back, and then really kick it into high gear, but. Also, like the second most, or arguably even more important than trying to win right now, is developing Cooper. And so getting him out there with experienced guys that know how to play and that also know how to play off of really good players, and Klay has played off of some of the best players of all time throughout his career, that could be a big benefit to Cooper as well. Christian, yesterday we were talking about Dereck Lively, AD, and Kyrie all coming back from major injuries and recovery from pretty serious surgeries. In Lively's case, some foot stuff for bone spurs. Now, at this time, unless you know something that we don't, which feel free to divulge that information on our airwaves, but at this time, his recovery timeline is sort of unclear, but I don't really think that there's any long-term, he's going to be out till February kind of stuff. Hopefully he's ready by opening night, but let's assume that he is, again, unless you know differently. Are you starting Lively or are you starting Gafford at the 5 alongside AD?
All I know is bone spurs. That's what's been put out there. I still think it's Lively. I mean, like if you look at the on-off stuff from last year, like Lively was just a on-off monster. Gafford is excellent. Like what he did, from January and February until he hurt his knee, like he was a monster too. But I still think it's Lively for me. Like Lively's more mobile defensively. Gives you the same stuff like over the top. Like some of the stuff Lively was doing as a passer last year, I thought really popped to me. Like he had a game where it was like 7 or 8 assists where he was just making all these plays off the short roll. Like when he came back at the end of the year, he had some plays to AD that's like, oh my God, like how is this guy doing this at 7'1"? Like I still want to see that, I think he definitely has to prove like he can make it through a full season. You guys have talked a lot about just like, I love his potential. I love him as a player, but he's got to be available. And I think, I want him in the starting lineup, but like he's got to prove that too.
Yeah, he's the better player. At some point, if he's on the court, if he's able to be healthy, like I just think he's the better player. So
they've demonstrated, going back to the 23-24 season, they've demonstrated that really regardless of who starts, but especially when Lively did, those guys were playing like 4 or 5 minute stints. Gafford ultimately supplanted him and became the starter throughout that playoff run, and sometimes played even shorter than that. But both of those guys were playing between like 22 to 26 minutes a game during the regular season. Do you think, Tim, that that's the way to do it to try and preserve Lively, or do you think that we could see that shift at all?
That is kind of the question. We thought last season that it might end up being more of like a 34, 14, maybe not quite that, but at least like 30, 20, like 32, oh my God, I can't, 32, 16, like that type of split, 30, 18, those type of splits for them. But because Lively was just not consistently available, like, yeah, I do think that you go in and you limit his role a little bit just because of that. That's kind of how it played out. So
one other way they can do that, Christian, is by playing neither of those guys. Now, I think we all think by now they are going to start two bigs. They're going to start AD at the 4, but pretty much every day in our chat, there's fans saying AD should play the 5, AD should play the 5. You go on Twitter, that's Mavs fans everywhere saying that as well. We say that a lot. We all kind of understand that that's not going to be the case full time, but how much 5 do you foresee him playing? Do you think that's something that Jake is going to roll with?
Well, this is such a funny question because people in New Orleans talk endlessly about Anthony Davis at the 4 versus Anthony Davis at the 5. Like Anthony Davis throughout his entire career has been like, look, my position is the 4, not the 5. New Orleans brought in guys to play the 5 next to him, and the players they brought in, like Omer Asik, not great players, and they were just devoting resources to these guys to play the 5 who weren't that good, and that was a source of frustration. They're like, this guy, AD is just better at the 5. We never really got to see what
the problem
AD
kind of carry over
like.
to Zion too, right? Like New Orleans is still trying to figure all that out, I think.
Yeah. But look, AD, we know he played, I think, 60% of his minutes at the 4 in the regular season in 1920 when the Lakers won the championship. This feels in a lot of ways like, the 1920 Lakers redux here this year. There's no LeBron, not yet, at least, Bobby. But
it's only July, folks.
I think he's gonna play a lot of 4. I think it's gonna be majority 4 in the regular season, but I wouldn't be surprised if you look at the end of the regular season, it's like, oh wow, 3 of their best 10 lineups were AD at the 5.
Can I go back to the 5th starter real quick?
Yeah.
So I think the conversation is PJ or Klay, because the only way that you can make a case to PJ Washington, who has been the starter this entire time, ever since he got to Dallas, the only way that you can make a case for him to come off the bench is to say, well, Klay Thompson, future Hall of Famer, and a guy with a very unique skill set is going to start in front of you. I think that's the only way that you can make that case. In a vacuum, if you just ignored that, is there any other cases that you can make for any other players on the roster? Because I think you can make the argument there's a case sort of for Najee, just as another dribble drive person, which kind of gives you that inverted spacing. I think if Max Christie is just lighting it up behind the arc, you can make an argument for him as a point of attack defender, like another two-way guy in the roster. You can make a case for if Caleb Martin all of a sudden rediscovers his jump shot to the best of what he had been in Miami, and all of a sudden he's a point of attack defender and he's a knockdown reliable shooter. I think there's a case to be made there. I'm going to sound insane for saying this. I literally think there could be a case for Brandon Williams, just for the offense to have another we've seen
alongside D'Lo or
alongside D'Lo.
Okay.
Wow.
I think it's very slim, hard to make case, just because you don't want the defense of Brandon Williams and D'Angelo Russell in the backcourt. But if you're gonna size up and have all these defenders in the backcourt and you're your offense just is not able to penetrate, is not able to get drives consistently enough, putting your other best driver on the court next to D'Lo, I think we're gonna see that backcourt at times. I don't think there's a case not to start Cooper. I don't think there's any case based off who he is that he's going to be the 6th man. But I guess that's the other.
That doesn't
argument
seem to be
make.
their plan, right?
Yeah, it's not their plan, and I don't think it should be. He's Cooper Flagg. I don't think there's any reasonable case that even in a vacuum, I don't think I can make that argument because he means too much to the team's future and his status as a player and all this stuff. But I do think that it's Klay or PJ. It's going to be Klay or PJ. That's the debate. But I think if you put us, if it was 2K, you can make an argument for a few more players that just isn't realistic based off the expectations these players have for their roles on this team.
Yeah, if there's no ego or money involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which there is /R. PJ going into the last year of his deal, granted, there's still the possibility of extension talks to take place and get hammered out and everything. Stein keeps alluding to that, but it hasn't happened yet. And if you're going into the final year of your contract and you get demoted to a bench role, I don't know. So we'll see what happens. But
is there any of those players that you would consider, a dark horse case for maybe you should be the 5th starter?
Yeah,
if you're like any of those,
if you're
names?
throwing out money and ego, I think what you're saying totally makes sense. When I look at even the starting lineup with Klay, I look at that and I'm like, well, that helps with the shooting, but there's still not guys who are generating rim pressure. I look at that, I'm like, does that make the offense a little bit sludgy? And putting Najee Marshall in there, hypothetically, that helps with that. That's one thing he does do. He slashes, righty floater god. But I think that helps. It's just if we're looking at this practically, you're probably not starting Najee Marshall, who I love as a player, over Klay Thompson and PJ Washington.
We do love Najee here, and I'm still picking up the pieces after nickname gate. But we will rebuild and come back even stronger next year. Najee hype, don't go anywhere.
You don't get to pick your nicknames.
I know exactly. All right, I don't need you to be okay with it. All right, the knife. But if you are mad, then again, you're invited to come on the show. We have guests on all the time. You know that you know some of them, right? Are y'all tight?
We have a good relationship going back to New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right. Yeah.
Bring Najee on the show and give us 5 minutes. We'll hammer it out in one segment.
Najee's first year in the NBA, he was an undrafted, two-way guy. It was COVID year in Stan Van Gundy, which was just a wild time. Like nobody in the arena, like that Stan year was crazy for a lot of different reasons. So yeah, I don't know. I felt like we went through something together.
Go way back. All right, Najee, open invite, buddy. Anytime. All right, coming up next, we're going to answer some of the more like philosophical, overarching questions about the Mavs roster and some of Christian's confidence level heading into next season. Don't go anywhere. It's the DLLS Mavs podcast. But first, we just went to Las Vegas and it was a blast. If you want to go Las Vegas, you have the opportunity to do so. Thanks to our fans at True Fan Travel. It's going to be the ultimate fan experience. DLLS is taking over the Strip for an unforgettable weekend in Las Vegas, culminating in Monday Night Football as the Dallas Cowboys take on the Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. You need to be there. This all-inclusive trip includes a 3-night stay at a luxury Las Vegas resort, game tickets, VIP parties, exclusive events with the DLS crew. You're going to be hanging out with them all weekend alongside fellow diehards and a whole lot more. If you think Clarence Hill goes hard on the show, imagine what that guy does in public when the cameras are off. Well, you can be there and paint the town red with our guy Chill out in Vegas again, November 15th to 18th. For more information and to find out how you can book your visit, go to truefantravel.com.
Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring that they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. What we love most about Rugged Road is their coolers. They're the best coolers out there. I know there's a lot of options, but check out Rugged Road. Like one of their most unique features of these coolers, they never lose a drink. They always stay upright. And let me tell you, if you're out on, like tubing the lake or anywhere, the last thing you want to do is be losing drinks. You don't want to be losing receipts or recipes. You don't want to be losing drinks either. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used, Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code DLLS for 10% off.
Welcome back to the DLLS Mavs podcast. Bobby Corella, Tim Cato, Christian Clark of The Athletic. So we talked about some starting stuff in the last segment.
Dante Exum has a case too. Forgot to name him.
That is, honestly, that's a good shout.
I think that's actually the best dark horse.
Yeah, I think Max Christie is another one too. Yeah. Max Christie is another one because that dude is young, has some team control, and has a lot of the skills that they need.
Same number of drives last season, like pretty much the same number of drives as Klay Thompson. So doesn't quite give, but point of attack defense.
Yeah,
there's value there, and I think that's why Dante has a case, and he also drives as a secondary guy. But just wanted to.
We've been talking about rim pressure and obviously ball handling quite a bit on this show. Christian, you mentioned it in the first segment. The Mavs this summer, publicly kind of stated like, look, they think that with D'Angelo Russell and Brandon Williams, and then pepper in a little bit of Najee and a little bit of Cooper and maybe a little PJ, they can sort of by team effort hold down the fort until Kyrie comes back, which hopefully will be pretty soon, but it could extend well into the season if not beyond. And so. What are your thoughts on that versus the team's, pretty big bet on size and interior presence at both ends of the floor?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I picked up too. They're like, look, collectively, we have enough ball handling here to make this work, survive without Kyrie. I mean, I think they know there's no replacing Kyrie, and that's on any NBA team. It's like you lose all-star guy who's making, close to max money. There's no replacing him. But look, I think this team could be good as long as Anthony Davis is available. I think that's a huge question and like the biggest question with this team. How much is AD going to play this year? I don't love here in the offseason, like, oh yeah, he's recovering from like a detached retina surgery. And then, the other thing to me, it's like, is the offense going to look sludgy? Like that's a concern I have. Defensively, I don't think they're the Thunder. I think they have a chance to be very, very good. They don't have like the caliber of perimeter defender, but I think defensively they're going to be fine. Offensively, what is this going to look like? Can they patchwork it together? I just worry there are nights like this just doesn't look pretty. They're grinding out stuff.
I like sludgy. Sludgy is a good adjective.
Tim and I, we watch other teams, and obviously Stein does too, and Kevin does too. But I mean, we talk about the Mavs all the time. You covered the Pelicans, you've covered the Nuggets, so you've worked around the league a little bit, and you still talk. I'm sure your network extends well beyond just those cities. But and I'm not doing this to try and like serve up some truth bombs to Mavs fans, but like I believe that interior defense is very valuable and rim protection is very valuable, but I believe perimeter defense is just as valuable, if not more. So could you explain, based on the success we saw the Thunder have, and other teams that you've covered and that you watch around the league, why is perimeter defense really important? I know even the best guys get beat and you have help behind you, so that's why rim protection matters so much. But why is perimeter defense so valuable?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're getting beat off the dribble consistently, that's just opening up like kick out threes. Every NBA coach is like, we want to generate paint threes. We want to drive and get a foot into the paint and kick it out and get threes, because those are just some of the best shots you can have. And also shooting at the rim, some of the best shots you can have. I mean, if you can't guard on the perimeter and prevent guys from going by you, then you're just opening yourself up to like the worst kinds of shots. I mean, I think anybody who watched the Thunder this year like understands the value of great perimeter defense, right? That was like one of the best perimeter defensive teams I've ever seen, with Caruso and Dort and Case and Wallace, and that team had two big guys who can block shots behind them too, with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. Like they kind of had everything. Like if let's just say they're throwing out the starting lineup with Klay, like who from the opening tip is guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, or Luka Doncic, and is it Cooper Flagg? Like who do you guys think is drawing that assignment?
So I think it is probably Cooper Flagg in a lot of instances. And so I want to bring up the other team that was in the finals, Indiana. And so the concern is, if you have a weak perimeter defense, is that you're just going to there are going to be possessions where you allow 3 or 4 drives per possession. And it's not that the rim protection isn't good. It's that if you have to rotate and scramble that many times, at some point you're going to make a mistake, because defenses teams score 100 points every game, and most of those are because there's a defensive mistake. Every possession is about, lasting as long as you can before making a mistake. And what Indiana did brilliantly, of course, like we all saw it, is they pressured full court. And I know Sam Vecini is talking about his big takeaway from Summer League is he saw a lot of teams pressuring full court. He thinks that's going to be like a trend that goes into next year, that more teams are going to kind of look at that and shorten the possessions, like make sure that every half court action is starting at like 15 or 16 on the shot clock, maybe even like 13, 14 if you can like really harass the ball handler. And if you're Dallas, like Cooper is kind of the only guy who is going to be able to do that well if you start with Klay. That's not going to be Klay's role. That's not going to be D'Angelo Russell's role. You can ask Cooper in some instances to, go pick up Shai full court because we have guys behind you. It's also it's going to be a slow starting lineup. So to the extent that the offense may look sludgy, you're not going to have a lot of offensive rebounding because you got to make sure you get your bigs back. If it's Lively, he runs, he gets, one side to the other pretty well. AD's a little bit slower. Klay's a little bit slower. I mean, Klay's great going, running to the 3-point line on an offensive break and finding those, like pull-up jumpers in transition, that type of stuff. But you do just kind of have a slow lineup. D'Angelo Russell is not known whatsoever for full court pressure. So you're kind of in a situation where you don't have the perimeter defenders to, stymie every first and second action. Like you're going to give up some penetration there. And you don't really have the guys except for Cooper. And this is why I kind of think Cooper may be asked at times to go pick up the lead ball handler at 94 feet. See if you can bother him. See if you can kind of harass him in the backcourt. A lot of energy expending, if you do that. But I do kind of like him in that role where he's the guy who's the lead guy, point of attack, because I think his best defensive role is kind of as that like roam around 4. But you've got Anthony Davis starting, who also is going. The reason he wants to play the 4 is he wants to go guard the opponent's worst player so that he can roam and be a weak side shot blocker, somebody who floats into the rim when he sees danger. And so if if Davis is playing, Flagg isn't going to have that role. So where can you use a 18-year-old's energy, even if guarding quick guards is not his best skill set? And I don't think it is. I think his best skill set is being an off-ball defender. But I could see that being something Dallas tries. Put him on the ball, chase the guy 94 feet, just see if you can slow down the offense so that you don't have to worry about multiple actions in a single possession.
I don't disagree with that, but I would also say be careful about drawing any conclusions from Summer League.
Totally.
And that,
it's a place where teams experiment.
Yeah, but it's also like no one in Summer League is good at dribbling, so let's just press them and they'll turn it over.
100%. Yeah. That's what every team did with Flagg.
Yeah. And sometimes it worked, and a lot of times it didn't, and we move on. All right? The ceiling is the roof with him. Christian, we've talked the last couple days, and really the last few months, like the Mavs just have so many dudes, and that's a good thing because it's good to have a lot of good players. But it could be a bad thing because if everyone is healthy, then guys are going to be catching DNPs and 15-minute nights that think they're better than that and probably are better than that and deserve more. And so, whether or not this is related to LeBron is up to you. The ball is in your court, pal. But, Tim we've both said, not that we believe it's going to happen, but that we think that there should be at some point some level of consolidation. 2 for 1, 3 for 2, 4 for 3, whatever it is. And they need to clear a roster spot to sign Dante anyway. It could be a simple matter of just buy someone out or stretch wave, whatever. But in your estimation, is that something that you could realistically see happening, or do you think that that's just kind of hope casting?
Yeah, I mean, as you just pointed out, like we know there's going to be a small move. I mean, Dante Exum is not officially signed yet. They've got 16 guys on standard contracts if you count for him. So we know they got to do something small, whether that is a salary dump or, just waiving a non-guaranteed contract or something like that. I personally don't think there's going to be a big move coming before the start of the season. Like the vibes I'm picking up are we're going to go into the season with what we have. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just kind of, what I've picked up. But like, it seems like to me, they're content to go into the season and kind of see what they have. And if they have to adjust on the fly, then they'll do that. I personally think like this roster, when I look at it, when everyone's healthy, I'm like, okay, this doesn't fit together seamlessly, but I also, knowing from New Orleans, nothing ever goes according to plan too. So it's like guys are going to miss time. Like, we're talking about like, well, what's the starting lineup when everyone's healthy? Like, well, we don't even know,
when will everyone be healthy?
Yeah. Nothing goes, exactly according to plan. So like, we could be like, well, thank God they have all this depth too.
Mm-hmm. I think the vibe started with the Gafford extension. And I think we all instantly noticed how interesting. Immediately tradable. That sure is a very specific extension and dollar amount that they doled out. And then I assume is the case for you, when you reach out to the Mavs, they're like, no, we're keeping him. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, it just happened. It happened to be 15%, but like and then those vibes just continued. Like there was never any crack in that public projection, or I guess private projection when we reached out to people. I assume it was the same for you. And like ever since that moment, I have never got any sense that anything big was happening this summer. Even though going into it, up until that Gafford extension, just me looking at the roster, I assumed they were going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, when I asked about the Gafford extension, I was like, so he's immediately tradable? And then I followed up a couple times with that, and like, yes, but that was always followed by, no, we're keeping him. And I like, it was said so strongly to me that I was like, okay, I believe it. And I mean, I think people like I talked to around the league are like, it's a really good number for Daniel Gafford. Like people are like, that's a really good, like good job on the Mavs. It's a good piece of business.
Coming up next, we are going to take a little trip back in a time machine to the start of the year, whenever Christian took over, and then some of the speed bumps we encountered along the way here at the DLLS Mavs podcast. But first, I live nearby the arena, and the last couple nights there have been some concerts going on. Whole lot of people going into American Airlines Center that might never have been there before for a Mavs game or for a Stars game. Or you might have been there for a Mavs game, but did you know the layout is a lot different in that building whenever there's a concert in town as opposed to a basketball game? Sightlines are different. There's floor seating. Everything is a little unusual. Wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what your POV is going to be from that seat?
It would be.
Well, Tim, Game Time exists for a reason. You can see a panoramic view from your seat in your section before you fork over the cash, so you know exactly what you're getting, and also with their all-in pricing, you know exactly what you're going to pay up front, as opposed to being surprised with service charges right at the very end that double or even triple the price of that ticket to the show you want to see. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DLLS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Game time. Just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage. And Empire Today is the place to help you with that. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals. They focus on flooring every single day of their lives. They're not like the big box score. The big box scores is what what I almost said there. I'm trying to say big box stores, where you go to the flooring section and how do you know the person that you're talking to was even working in flooring yesterday? With Empire Today, you absolutely know every time that they live and breathe flooring, that they're going to be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame. So schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. DLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard that right, a $350 discount with code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/DLLS for full details.
Welcome back to the DLLS Mavs podcast. Gentlemen, let's go back to February 2025, or maybe slightly before. Bobby Corella, Tim Cato, joined by Christian Clark of The Athletic. This was Christian's first year on the Mavs beat. Spent a lot of years in the NBA before this, but have probably never encountered anything quite like what happened in February whenever the Mavericks shocked the world by trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers. Now, we're not going to relitigate the trade and all of that stuff, but
Unless you want to.
Unless you want to. But, as someone that was covering it, and, Tim, you wrote a lot of stories about what went into that decision and the fallout and all that stuff. But Christian, you guys at The Athletic, both you and the team of writers there, did a lot of reporting around then too. What was it like for you to take over the beat at that moment in time and to go through everything that happened? And what are some of the the things that really stand out in your memory?
And to take it out, like expecting to be a Luka beat writer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime you take one of these jobs, you're like, well, is there going to be interest? And it's like, well, they have Luka, so yeah, there's definitely going to be interest. I mean, my first day was December 9th. I watched him play 4 times in a Mavericks uniform before he got moved. So
4 times.
How was it?
It was pretty good. One of the things I was bringing up a lot during the season, they were like, 19-11 going into Christmas. I think they were, top 11 in offense and defense. Like on paper, you're like, okay, this, I like Oklahoma City come out of the West, but they could maybe be a contender. That's how I was feeling going into Christmas. I was like, they're good. They have the makings of maybe a contender.
Like, did you take the job with visions like, maybe I'll end up in Slovenia? Maybe maybe there's a flight to Ljubljana at
go on a world tour.
Future.
No, you did the Ljubljana flight and
Fair.
Story,
very long
which
flight.
was a good one. But no, I mean, like the thing I'll probably remember most is just that moment of terror. Like I was on the road trip with the team, when Luka was traded. I was in a hotel room in Cleveland, and the trade deadline was a couple days away, and I'd filed a post that day like, here's some backup centers, here's some 3s and 4s, like maybe they could look at, solid 1,000 words, pretty boring list. And then I was going to bed and, just get woken up by barrage of calls and texts, a little after midnight on Eastern time, like, oh my God, this is real. I mean, I literally thought I was having a nightmare. Like it took me a second to realize like, this is real. I was one of the many people who was like, this is real,
Yeah. Did you, did that piece ever run?
Which one?
The trade
trade deadline
piece?
Primer?
You filed it that night.
It
and
never saw
ran?
the light of day.
Yeah.
It was going to go live the next morning. That never went live.
Yeah,
and
sometimes that's how it plays out. So you were at the Cleveland press conference.
Yeah, I got to
Nico.
go to that.
What what was it like being there in person? You know, it starts off with a joke that every YouTube video you can find of it is now clipped like that. That's not there any longer. And like, what were the vibes as you recall them in that room?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jason Kidd looked very nervous. That's something I'll, kind of remember. I think WFAA did they had a body language expert do like a 20-minute video of like how uncomfortable Jason Kidd looked, and I watched that entire 20-minute video.
I like body language analysis.
Yeah. I watched a body language doctor break that down. Look, I think that was just like the thing I'll remember is that was not handled well from a public relations perspective. Like leading with the joke, like gallows humor. Like I think they'll look at that in like public relations courses and be like, this is not how you handle a crisis. Like my note, if I was a PR professional for the people who had to explain that one, is like, you need to go in there and like act like this is a funeral, because this is a funeral for your fans. Like you might have had reasons to trade Luka, and like, I think their thought process was, all right, we got to give this guy like hundreds of millions of dollars a summer, devote 35% of the salary cap. We don't like believe the conditioning stuff is going to improve. We feel like the injury stuff is going to get worse. Like, I don't necessarily agree with all that, but I can see how they were in that headspace. But, the way it was explained, I thought that was like just not handled well at all.
Yeah, it's just very clear they did not understand the gravity, which is something they've admitted, is something that we've reported, is something that is just very obvious. But they, in that moment, it took probably days until they understood collectively as an organization, the leading people, the people making those decisions, to really understand the gravity of how a fan base was going to react to it, how, the sporting universe was going to react to it. And it was very clear from that moment that was never understood.
I think like one of the things that I really noticed from the Luka trade is like, and I think why Mavs fans had such a hard time with it among many reasons is like Mavs fans went from having like the most customer centric owner face Mark Cuban to like people leading the team who I just don't really think they cared about what the customer thought, I mean, they're like, we think this is the right thing and like, we don't care. And it's like, you have to make hard decisions sometimes when you're in leadership, and like they had their reasons for doing that. I don't agree with all of them, but like I just don't think there's any like regard for like, this is what our customer, our fan base thinks, it's like, you at least have to be cognizant of that and like understand their perspective. And I don't think they did or tried to.
It was just such a shift, obviously. It was such a shift going from Cuban to Dumont and from Donnie to Nico and, all this stuff. Christian, going back like more than 10 years, or I guess about 10 years ago, you and I wrote a little blog together called Mavs Outsider Report way back in the day. And so, I don't know if you would ever consider yourself to have been a Mavs fan, or were you?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. My senior year of high school, they won the championship. Like great time of my
nice.
life.
Okay. Yeah. So then, you grow up watching Dereck. And so like many other Mavs fans, like we kind of get this sort of maybe just a premonition or just a dream that Luka will be the next Dereck, that we got 21 more years coming and all that stuff. And like, that is just not apparent to people that weren't here for the Dereck stuff. And none of these guys were. I mean, J-Kid was in a different capacity, but Nico.
Yeah, that's why he looks so nervous.
Yeah.
As the body language expert.
Yeah. But like that sort of stuff is just, I don't know. It's just not apparent, and maybe not even the case for Mavs fans that came along later, that weren't here for Dereck. Like it was just such a different, like this is a very unique town to trade a star from.
Yeah. I mean, do you think they knew what the inscription was on Dereck's statue? Like that's a genuine question.
Probably not.
Yeah. It feels like it feels like a piece of information you should know. Like you should know like basic details about the history of the team. And that doesn't mean, that has to be your guiding light or your North Star. Like Nico still has to do what he thinks is right. And, I mean, but I just don't feel like there was even like an understanding of basic history of the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear the reaction would have been different following the trade, the handling of it, the PR, the way that they talked about it, the way that they went into, like if you grasped what Dereck meant and then realized that the fan base viewed through the Mavericks' own pushing of this, like the Mavericks were instrumental in branding Luka as the next Dereck. This was something they did constantly as a franchise, as a messaging, and like as they should. And yes, that's more, a lot of way that's the digital and the communications team. That is the way it's pushed. But the people in charge also talked about the comparisons between Dereck and Luka. And that if you know, if the people making the decision had grasped that, it would have been funeral vibes, and it would have been very different.
Like empathy for your fan base. You know,
Exactly.
even if you don't, you're like, we had to make this decision. It was a very
Right.
difficult decision. There was not empathy for the fan base, and like that was what needed to be communicated in my mind, like right after it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, unlike, I think strictly from a basketball perspective, we can talk about the trade and whether it was good or bad and what lessons they applied to future trades or whatever. Like evaluate it as a business move. This was sort of different. Obviously, there are a lot more layers to it than just simplifying it to that extent. But since that trade, they really have followed it. Like, it is very clear that is the vision. Like, there have been moves made since then that only further solidify that, like, this is exactly what the Mavs want to do. Now, that isn't to say that you have to like commend them for the vision or anything. If you disagree with it, like, I don't necessarily agree with the roster plan, but like, they certainly believe in the plan that they're going with. It's certainly a bold one, and it is kind of zigging while the rest of the league is zagging. But I mean, there is reason to believe that it could work. Obviously, so much of that hinges on Kyrie coming back soon and quickly and everything. But I mean, do you get that vibe too? Like, they say that they're all in to win a title, and it really does feel like they're all in because everyone's contracts line up. Like, it really does seem like this is it. This year and next year is it.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie and AD, 2 more years on the contracts, and then they've got player options that third year. I mean, Nico Harrison, Tim was in the meeting, is like, I got 3 years left of my deal. I think when you look at like, a lot of the key players involved here, it kind of lines up on a 3-year window. I mean, the best players in this team are approaching their mid-30s. I mean, the time is now. And, look, I didn't agree with the Luka trade. I think Donnie Nelson said, when you have a great player, you just go with that guy as long as you can until he says it's done. Like, I think I believe that, but like, I still think this team would have been very good, and they would be in that contender discussion if Kyrie hadn't gotten hurt. Like, I really do like this team a lot if Kyrie doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, there's teams zigging, there's teams zagging, and then the Mavs are like zagging. I don't know. It's like some third secret option.
You got the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, the story I wrote about two bigs, we talked about it last week, I think, and even though there are a lot of teams committing to 2 centers, both teams that won the conference's last regular season were teams that started 2 centers, 2 big men. Players you look at and objectively, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, those are all centers. Yes, they can play next to each other, but they are centers. But even then, when as I've did in that piece, and I kind of tallied up all the 3-point attempts and the drives, like Dallas is last on that list in terms of how much offensive uniqueness or offensive modernity that these bigs have, in terms of like, this is the new NBA, this is skill ball. These guys shoot threes and they, with a live dribble, they get to the rim 25 feet away. Dallas doesn't really have that. They're pivoting even further than a lot of these teams that are pivoting to 2 centers. They're pivoting almost to a older version of what the NBA was. And maybe they're ahead of it, maybe, and Anthony Davis is very unique. I don't mean to say he isn't.
He's like Lively, a once in a generation, once in a lifetime kind of player.
100%. And Dereck Lively is, also as we've discussed, a lot of his injury problems come from the fact that he has a very unique body and athleticism and can do very unique, or, we think that there's probably a correlation between the fact that, he is he's 7'2" and can guard point guards. Like, there is a lot of uniqueness to that. It's not to say there isn't, but then especially on the offensive end, you just look at the raw stats, and like, these guys are not unique in the way that a lot of these 2 center combos, some of them teams are planning to use them a lot less. They're just planning for the optionality of having 2 centers they can throw out there. That's what Houston is doing. That's what Memphis to some extent is doing, because I wouldn't consider like Santi Aldama to be a center. He's a big, but he's not a center. So Zach Edey is going to be out there sometimes next to Jaren Jackson, but sometimes they're going to go smaller. Sometimes it's going to be Jaren Jackson alone as the 5. And what Dallas is doing is just fully committing to big ball all the time with a trio of centers that are just not the same type of modernity. Like, this is the brand new era of basketball. It's very interesting. I think it's it's noble in the sense that Nico Harrison believes this is the right way to play basketball, or he believes this is his preferred way to play basketball, and he believes it can win. And they're committing to it. There are not a lot of teams committing quite like them to this exact approach. But Nico Harrison says, no, I want to do it my way in every possible way. And in the sense that he just believes in his basketball ethics and believes in his worldview, I do respect that. It's just I'm still not convinced I agree with the vision itself.
It was a bold move on the floor and an even bolder one off the floor, and we'll continue talking about it probably for the rest of our lives. Coming up next, we are going to talk, I don't know, maybe about just working in the league.
I got more questions for Christian.
All right, cool. Fill up the chat with some of your own too. We'll get to those next on the DLLS Mavs podcast. But first, folks, like I said right off the top of the show, now is the best time to become a diehard, and you can do so by scanning that QR code. Oh, it's right there. Wow, okay. Right there. You can scan that QR code, or you can click the link in the description below, or you can go to alldlls.com/intro and take advantage of our $36 diehard intro offer in honor of training camp starting out in Oxnard. We got Clarence out there in California. Sunny and sometimes cloudy Southern California, bringing you the latest Cowboys news. We got Tim Cato bringing you news on the Dallas Mavericks. We got Sam Nestler, who's right over there. Hi, Sam. And Sean Shapiro, who's way up in Detroit.
Hi, Sean!
Bringing you Stars coverage. And we got Jeff Wilson, who is on vacation. I don't know where Jeff Wilson is, actually. I hope he's enjoying his trip wherever he is. Bringing you Texas Rangers news on our website, alldlls.com. We also do a newsletter. It's free to sign up for. Just go to that website, scroll all the way down, sign up. I'm doing it right now, and who knows who's going to be doing it pretty soon. And then, what are the other benefits, Tim? Well, when you sign up, you get a free shirt of your choice. We got more than 40 to choose from, including the sterling Dallas collection. Oh my God, look at all those shirts. I like each of them more than the next one. Somehow, it's an endless feedback loop of positivity and joy. You get to choose one of those or any other for free right when you sign up. And if you already redeemed one and you're a diehard, well, you get a discount on all the other stuff. You also get to join the DLS Discord. Yesterday, we took a bunch of questions from the diehards. We do that quite a bit, and I'd like to do that even more often than we already do. And you get your physical diehard card, Tim Cato.
I don't have it on me. It's just too heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. Me too.
But I've been hitting the gym to try to get my fitness back to a level where I can actually carry it around.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can, the strongest of you can carry it around with you as well. There's so many reasons to become a diehard. Those are just a few. Take advantage of this deal now, folks. All right. Welcome back. It's the DLS Mavs podcast, segment number 4 on a Friday. The weekend is in sight, and God, it looks sunny and beautiful, maybe a little sweaty and full of cold beer and better times. Responsibly, of course. Tim and Christian, I guess this last 12, 15 minutes or so, hopefully 12 minutes or so, we can just have like a beat writer off or something. The writer part is pretty important. Important there.
Easy. Pause. Take it easy,
I
Bobby.
said beat writer off.
You're just doubling down on it,
like a beat writer, who's the best beat writer? I said that. Y'all heard it.
Okay.
Yeah, you heard it. Kat heard it.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Floor is yours.
How much?
What a great host I am, right?
What a great host he is.
Hey, welcome back. All right, go for it.
We need Kevin Gray back so bad. How much did your perspective change on what you're trying to do on the beat after the Luka trade? Because I remember that being just a very, and for us, it's a little bit different because we were doing the show on the show, we kind of turned into a therapy, a daily therapy hour, for fans. At The Athletic, obviously, I am very familiar with that role. Not quite that level of directness, to the fans, although certainly a good amount. I love the comment sections, all that stuff. But how did your mindset change in terms of oh, shoot, what is my job now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I immediately was like, oh, this is what the fan base is thinking and feeling story. That was apparent immediately. There was a mock funeral and all that. We don't even need to go down that road again. I mean, personally, I feel like it was challenging for me because every year you're covering a team, it just gets easier because you have more relationships, more people you can talk to and get perspective from. And it's it's like a snowball rolling downhill. Just like I feel like the job just gets easier every year you do it, because a lot of it is like it's information, and you need relationships to get information. Like I was covering the Pelicans. That was my 6th year when I left for this job. It's like, man, I just knew like people in and outside the organization. And it was like it wasn't easy, but like it was like year one is really hard, and it's like I'm the new guy and I'm asking you about this crazy thing you just did. So
everybody in the months following the Luka trade, because of the PR backlash, because of how bad everything went on the court, it was very hard to get anything done. Everything was very touchy. Like everybody was very on edge. Like everything had gone so badly in every possible way that even what would have been easy, like, hey, can I get, this player towards the end of the bench for 10 minutes? Well, first off, he was probably injured because the entire team was. But it was just, I remember it being, I remember like it was years ago. Like in the spring, it was very difficult to do even the normal stuff because of this huge cloud and this huge, like the enormous negative optics, just weighing everything down.
Yeah, I mean, like that Luka's return game, like in the locker room afterwards, unfortunately, it was a story. It's like you're asking players, like,
right,
did you hear what the fans were saying, and all of that? It's like, it's not always received well, but it's like
the PJ fan drama interaction, like PJ versus the, like the common Joe was like, that was a weird.
Like even in situations where the team sucks and like borderline hopeless situation, like the worst Wolves years, the worst Kings years, where it's like there are people who've like lived and died without seeing their team go to the playoffs one time. There's never really been anything like that.
So I was trying to think of historical comparisons, and like, is there anything like this? And I think no, but like the biggest what if that I could come up with is, okay, what after 2001 when Iverson got the 76ers to the finals, they just traded him in 2002. It's like he just kind of dragged this team. Mavericks roster is probably like a better roster than the 76ers had around AI in like 01 or whatever. But he just, this team clearly overachieved. This guy just had an unbelievable run. There are maybe, they're different, but like there are maybe some concerns about like, is this guy doing everything he can to maximize his potential? But he's objectively an amazing player, but yeah. and a deep connection with the fan base. Like to me, that's like the closest thing I can come up with. It's like, what if 76ers had like traded Allen Iverson in 2002?
I like that. That makes a lot of sense as a comparison. And the 76ers did not trade him. In fact, like that's the level of connection and relationship there was.
That is the thing though, right? Because like the Sixers never even came close to that level. They still, I mean, they still.
And Iverson's off-court habits did lead to him, having a very short peak.
Yeah, and so also his body was small and a lot of injuries and everything. But like,
obviously not a perfect 1-to-1.
But like that's the whole. That is kind of the whole point and essence of fandom, right? Is that like even if you could make the case, this is such hindsight stuff. Like, let's say they did trade Allen Iverson, they got back a ton of stuff, and they ended up having a pretty good run after that. Whereas we know how that story finished, and it didn't go great necessarily. So objectively, maybe that was the best time to trade him. But like, that's the whole point of sports is it's supposed to be emotional. It's supposed to be like the fans are supposed to win sometimes too.
It'd be like if the Mavs won the title in 2011 and then like broke up the finals team right after.
That would never happen, Tim. That would never happen.
Also, that's not a comparison. It's a bad comparison.
They did that based on not emotion, but they did that based on what's best for business, and it clearly didn't work. And like Dirk's final almost decade of his career was sort of a wash because of it.
So that is a lot of the times I said I would not have done that trade because of the fan base, because of their feelings about it, because of what Luka meant to them. And it's exactly what you said. 9 times out of 10, 49 times out of 50 in the NBA, the decisions you make to try to win a championship are not going to work. It's the hardest thing to do in sports. It's not guaranteed that it would have worked with Luka. It's certainly not guaranteed that, oh my God, like the team was all healthy going into the playoffs. Like we don't know that I don't know if they would have beat OKC. I don't know if they would have beat Indiana if they made it past OKC. You know, I don't know what the future would have held. Dereck Lively's injury and whether he can be healthy, you know, like in the postseason, like that was a huge concern last season, no matter what happened, even if the trade didn't happen. But there's no guarantee this works either. And so if you're faced, I get it. You know, on one hand, I get it. If you think that this decision makes it a little bit more likely, I understand that you have to do, you know, like I don't know. It's just
you got to
the hardest thing to do in the NBA is win a championship.
I mean, yeah,
the hardest thing to do is win a championship.
Yeah,
and so I have always been of the school that because it's so hard and because it's not guaranteed, yes, it is the thing that you're trying to do every single season. But if it's the only guiding light and principle that you have as a basketball franchise, like there has to be more than that, or you have to be the Lakers or the Celtics and you just always win. I don't know.
They were also
kind of rambling.
They're also really good going to that Christmas game. Like all the indicators were like,
right.
Yeah, this team, you know, like they're 19-11, you know, top 11 in offense and defense. Like they were kind of checking a lot of the boxes of like maybe this is a team they contend too. So we'll never know. Do you guys believe this skinny Luka stuff? Like I went through this with Zion every offseason. It's like he's getting in great shape. We're looking at photos of him, and it's like I believe this time. And they're obviously different players, but like, what's you guys' confidence level that like he's just going to come into this season ready to just kick butt?
Hope he does. I would like. It would be a shame if we never saw just like super chiseled statuesque Luka. Like that would be so fun. He'd probably average 50 a game.
I think at least the first half of next season, he's going to be. I think he's going to be pretty close to where he was a couple years ago. The first half, but the story with Luka every single time is when he reaches that first injury that he has to play through or has to sit out a week, how does he manage that? That has always been the story. Every single, more seasons than not, he has shown up in very good shape. And sometimes even before the first game, things happen like that was last season where it was the injury the day before training camp that really derailed him. But he always shows up in shape, and I think he's had more motivation and reason to do that than ever before. But is he going to get fresher with the roster around him? Is he going to get fresher with DeAndre Ayton and being like, man, can you just like actually go catch a lob instead of, you know, stopping at the 50?
Is Marcus Smart still good?
Yeah, and are those frustrations going to, you know, bleed into the way that he conducts himself, you know, as a basketball player, as a basketball athlete?
It's just so tough, man, because like, I mean, the same is true for the Mavs and really any team in the West. You can be a good team in the West, maybe even like a really good team that plays in the West and win 39 games. You know, like the value of a win is just so much higher in the West than it is in the East right now. And there is going to be a good team that stays pretty healthy that finishes outside the top 8 that's going to shock you. You know, and it could be it could be the Lakers. I could see them finish outside the top 8.
Yeah, it's possible.
There's a Pelican season I covered, one of the few like pretty good seasons they've had in franchise history. They won 49 games. They ended up in the play-in. Zion gets hurt against the Lakers in the last game, and then they have to play OKC in the first round. You know, without him, and they just get swept. And it's like now it's just kind of all turned to dust. But like that's how unforgiving it is in the West. You can win 49 games. It was like the second most games they'd ever won in franchise history. Like, you know, one of the most successful years they've ever had. It's like swept the first round series against OKC, and now it's like, yeah, we have to basically tear it down.
And like that is kind of why I think there is value in, like, let's say, okay, Klay Thompson's not Klay Thompson anymore, right? But there is just some Klay Thompson's never going to sign with the Pelicans in free agency, you know? And for the Mavs, for a long time, no one was signing with the Mavs in free agency, even at Klay's level, where it's like all-time great player that might be on the back 9. The Mavs weren't getting those guys. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, like, or maybe 2 days ago, I don't remember. But the Mavs are now in that sort of echelon of teams, you know, where like you can get those really good players. So I don't think whether this season goes well or goes awfully, like I don't think that it's going to turn to dust for them at any point, because like I think they're in that group, at least for now, you know, and that reputation sticks around for a little bit. And in that respect, you know, Nico and the front office have done a really good job, because even front offices of the past that place the correct amount of respect on Luka and Dirk's names and whatever, they weren't getting those guys, you know, and the Mavs are now. And they do deserve a lot of credit for that, because that kind of thing has a little bit of staying power, even if, you know, the team building philosophy isn't what we think it should be.
And you know what helps, Bobby?
What's that?
Cooper Flagg.
He does help a lot. Yeah, he does help a lot. He does help a lot.
Love it.
Yeah, not a true glamour franchise. They never will be. You know, those franchises have been built by history and built by geography. Yep. But they have built a visage of a glamour. They've built a facade, not even a facade. They've built a image that they are close or near to those franchises, and it has benefited them a lot.
You know what we're gonna build? A big old beach. We're gonna go to a lake near you and put some sand down and say, "Here's the coastline. Free agents, LeBron, come sign here."
Hey, we're gonna bring the Rugged Road coolers,
and we're gonna take all of them and our Shady Rays and our hats and from Branded Bills and all that stuff. Monarch Money's gonna be mad about all the things I'm gonna buy this weekend. Hey, you have a great weekend. Christian Clark from The Athletic, thank you for joining us. Where can folks find you and your stuff?
On Twitter, not X, Twitter, at Christian P. Clark, and then you can read my stuff at The Athletic.
Do that. Tim Cato, Tanner Rotman, y'all have a great weekend. I'm Bobby Corella. Y'all have a great weekend, and we will see you and Kevin Gray Jr. on Monday. Till then, take it easy.
See y'all.
We all silly like the mayor.